All right, so time to go over this Eisenhower COVID monument. Based on what we went over before with the previous video, which was more of a prototype spitballing, just getting started. So now that things have started to coalesce, congeal into something more on target here, I figured I would just go over this freestyle. Usually I lay it all out and then do a video, but I figured to save time and just kind of go with it. So bear with me, might be all over the place. So I went ahead and brought in the star and circle that you had laid out. So we got 11.5 and whatever this size is. Things seem pretty good. And then I brought over how we're going to mount. If you recall from the other video, we'll have like this 1/8 plate that's in black that actually gets nailed down to the concrete, or the granite, I should say. And then inside will be the actual framing for the star part there, for the triangle piece, the wedge. So really we're just going to be worried about the inner structure part and how it mounts and how we're going to run power and stuff. So one of the first things when I just kind of brought this over and started looking is, again, your point to being like, we want to have the 18-inch sides, and we'll keep it at an 18, but you can see where the difference between the star we drew last time and this official star, which is what we're going to, we're going to go off of this now. This is going to be our actual template. So whether we route out aluminum templates or this is going to become the DXF, where we put holes and how this thing is, we're going to go ahead and just make sure that this is what we're using from that point out. That way we don't get this differentiation there. So right off the bat, it brought up a point, pun intended, that I brought this up last time, where because we're going to have this 1/8 inch, we can't really bend this or anything to keep it clean. So we're going to have to deal with the fact that our star points aren't going to go to an actual point, nor do we want the point, because we'll leave the slicing of people up to the Eisenhower surgeons, and we don't want to be having to build another memorial for the people who died from visiting our memorial. So I figure what we could do then is, that kind of brought this up, where it might be beneficial to the granite people, is we go ahead and have them cut these blunt just straight across, whether it's an inch down or whatever, and that way they don't have to worry about this cracking or anything like that. Plus we won't have to worry about how this looks if our star point doesn't go to the end and then the granite sticks out, or it's a little off or whatever. So I was thinking what we could do is, like I said, we could just stop the granite early, and then when we go to put our thing down, it'll sort of cover it, and at that point we can sort of adjust it back and forth and stuff like that. So I think that's a pretty good solution there. And like I say, it might be beneficial to them, just keeps things easier. And I imagine what they'll do is they'll chop that, and then they do that seam like we're talking about straight out. So that way they can cut this chunk into one manageable piece, and they'll bring them together around the star. So anyway, so mounting is another thing. So that kind of brought that up. So what I'm going to do is, like, if we're going to do the mounting plate, let me just break this apart. That. There you go. So the mounting plate would sit on the granite, ready to receive the triangle monolith piece. So we got bolts and we've got power to run in. So I have a scale. This is pretty much 3/4 non-metallic. That's what we like to use. So I figured that would be our sweep in. Looking at your drawing here, I can see what we were thinking about doing. This works. You got the 4-inch slab, and then we'll have our granite. So obviously we're not going to be attaching anything to the granite. That's going to be purely decorative. So we need to get through the granite to our slab there, as it's shown. So first off, what we'll do is we'll do the 3/8 studs, stainless, Lord's Den with Hilti, epoxy. So what we'll do is probably just oversize these holes, I imagine, to be plenty big to miss that. So if this is 3/8, we could tell them to water jet out like a 3/4 inch hole. That would give plenty of room to miss the stud. So that would be in the granite. I imagine that would work. And then what we could do is also, I figured this is the outside dimension of, like I say, 3/4 non-metallic, which is just over an inch. So we could go ahead and do a nice generous like 2-inch hole that would allow for that power to come through. Now, what this also brought up was, let's say, I imagine what we'll be doing is doing like a garden box out here, right? That we'll be running our power to. Now, this obviously is just for, just for showsies, but if you're going to, how we're going to actually distribute this power to the 5 points, we're going to be doing 120 line power to each of these, because it's going to be too much to run secondary around. So each of these will have their own little power supply. They'll be basically self-sufficient. That being said, do we either emanate from this spot to each of these points with a tube, or probably what we would do, and this all has to be done before we pour the slab, obviously. So if we pull up our slot machine, if we're feeling lucky here, I'm thinking we could just go ahead and have them do like a 2-inch slot, which in the granite, which then would make more sense that maybe we could do side by side conduits. And then that way you could do a sweep down under the slab, come over, and then pop up and do a sweep. And then the next sweep next to that will go to the next guy, so we can just chain them underneath the slab until you get to the end here. And then at which point this first side here could be your just your one sweep to your garden box. So garden box, sweep down, pop up through the concrete, and then make sure these go up long enough to poke up into past the slab and everything there like you have there. So I'm thinking that might be the way to go if we tell the granite guys to just put a nice generous 2-inch slot like that. And then we can do, like I say, these are 3/4 inch. We could even do 1 inch. Nice big generous thing. That way it completely does not conflict with our stud. So then the studs can be long enough to go like you have it drawn. They will be originally epoxied into the slab and then poke up through the granite. So that way the granite is not doing any sort of mounting or bolting down or anything like that. It'll just be sandwiched. So I think that works. So then to solve the problem of how do we make sure that these land exactly where they need to go, that's where it'll be time to like break a couple eggs and make ourselves a jiggy omelet. So then I was thinking what we could do is just go ahead and make that template that we were talking about, that we could then use when they go to pour the slab. We would use the template twice. We would use the template the first time on the dirt. So let's say this would be the center piece. We can make this out of 090. It's just a little over 3 feet, so it's not a lot of material. And then we can emanate from that. So we can bend this, make a flange, like we do. So we just put flanges on all 5 sides, and then we can just do something as simple as making like a blade that sticks out like that. And at which point we could make it pointy so it'll fit inside the form. So my idea is that they can go ahead and put the concrete form up, and we can even make it like an inch in just to make sure it fits. And this guy here could just attach down here, so we can bend up a flange there. We could even bend the sides a little bit, give it some rigidity, kind of spread it out a couple inches like that. So we could go ahead and emanate this out from all 5 sides. So 72 degrees is the magic number for the star there. So like that, so we could just go ahead and bolt these together. So easy to route, doesn't take much material. And then install can take that out there. They can just bolt these fins on, and then these fins will have the mounting spot here, here, here for our bolts, and then for the studs, and then here, this will give the area that these need to pop up within that 2-inch routed out granite. So we know that the purple here will be where the rounded out granite is eventually. So what they could do is once the form gets put up for the 111.5 circle, then you take this over there, assemble it, and then lay this in the center of it, get it centered out, make it all even, and then use this, spike it into the ground, make sure it doesn't move, and then you can use this to dig your tunnels across and ensure that your EMT is popping up, your rigid there is popping up in the places it's supposed to. Then you can go ahead and pull this out of the way, and they can pour it. And then once it's poured and finished, we know that these will be in spot. Then you can take this template and put it back on the finished concrete, line it up where it was, make sure it all lines up there, center it. Then you can go ahead and drill for your studs, and then go ahead and epoxy in your studs. So then you'll have electrical popping out, you'll have studs popping out, and then that should get your concrete set. Then, like we said, we'll have very oversized holes when they go to put granite in. And the granite, like I say, we can go ahead and chop it flat. And then when it's time to do our install, we can go ahead and do slots onto our piece, this little piece that goes onto the concrete there. We could go ahead and just make, let's see, even if we just do 1/2 inch, I mean, there'd be plenty of wiggle room there. So that way we can go ahead and pull these back and forth a little bit. So that way, when it's time to line these up just right, you know, we can make sure that it follows the granite like it's supposed to. And then again, like I said, if we blunt that corner, then our little sign will go ahead and continue and be the point. So we're not kind of going, oh, we missed it, and the granite sticks out, or the granite gets chipped anyway, like I said. So I think that's a pretty good solution, but nothing's changed as far as from the other video I made. So however this goes together is pretty much going to be how we talked about in the other one. So this is just more dealing with what we'll know with the concrete now that we have a concrete size for the star and everything. So hit me up on this. We'll go over it a little bit just to make sure this is what we want to do. I'm not going to push any buttons or hit go on anything, but I'm looking for your feedback on all this before we send anybody anything or say, you know, roger that. So, all right.